All right, listen up. I'm not one of those super high effort video essay channels that's extremely well researched and knows exactly what it's talking about. I don't really know how to do that. I mean, I've tried. I made a video about The Last of Us 2 that was pretty long. But in general, I just kind of sit here and ramble about things that I like. One of those things happens to be The Expanse by James S.A. Corey, the book series, and also the TV show, which just finished its 5th season, and it was absolutely explosive. It was some good shit. All right, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's up there. And I'm here to spread the gospel of this show because even though it has a huge cult following and is apparently Jeff Bezos' favorite show, which is an interesting tidbit, I'm not sure why, because he would definitely be one of the villains. But even though it has a very strong following, it's still somehow underwatched. So go friggin' watch it or read the books, whatever you want to do. If you're not sure why you should do that, well, don't worry. That's why I'm here. So let's talk about it. So The Expanse is a hard sci-fi space opera that takes place in a future where humans have colonized most of the solar system. Obviously, Earth has been colonized since time. I can attest to that. And in this series, we've also colonized Mars and are working on terraforming it so that we can freely live in the atmosphere. And most of the asteroid belt and the lands beyond it, or space beyond it, is populated by people living on space stations. And it's immediately obvious when reading or watching the series that every detail of what life actually constitutes in this future where humans have achieved this diaspora across the solar system has been calculated. When you live on a space station, how does that change your outlook on, say, food and water? Things that we all need, that we can take for granted because we live in an atmosphere where those things are in more or less abundance, not to be disrespectful to people who don't have access to it, but they should. When you're on a space station, those things have to be meticulously rationed.
Roll drunks, but when you mess with the water, that's when you're going down.
How does it affect your physiology when you grow up in space and have little to no gravity, ever? What are the economic structures of such a society like? What are the power struggles like? What causes conflict in this world or in these worlds? To expand on that a little bit, I feel that the series has a really intuitive grasp of power dynamics, material conditions, culture, and the way these things intersect with one another, which is what gives it its very plausible take on what our future could look like. You can see this in a lot of different places. For example, the ambitious collectivist mindset of most Martians, who are all dreaming of successfully terraforming the planet so they can walk freely on its surface one day. Or how about the relentless exploitation of the Belters, who work in harsh conditions on space stations and very rarely see the fruits of their labor, leading to severe pushback against people from the inner planets. You can see this on Earth, whose population and resources have expanded so massively that most people there don't even work and have everything provided for them on basic. Not even basic income, just basic. They have to go out of their way to actually work, which leads to them often being stereotyped as lazy and entitled.
Earthers get to walk outside into the light. Breathe pure air. Look up at a blue sky and see something that gives them hope. And what do? They look past that light, past that blue sky. They see the stars and they think, mine.
There are a lot of these larger overarching factors that demonstrate an understanding of how societies change and evolve with time, but you also have these smaller nuggets of characterization that provide a little bit of extra flavor, like for example, Mars having a really strong community from India and Texas, leading to this weird cultural intersect.
What's the good word, y'all?
Alright. How's my sweet old rust bucket today?
Well, I guess we'll find out, won't we?
Or the most famous cultural idiosyncrasy the show has provided, the unique mix of Creole and Patois, which a lot of the Belters speak. I find that this lends a lot of authenticity to Belter culture, a culture that is prided in its dispersal, its decentralization, and yet finds common ground in their shared working class background and shared struggle against their economic oppressors. Against, one could say, the Jeff Bezoses of their world, which makes it, again, very disturbing that this is his favorite show. Anyways, the point is, all of these details are so well fleshed out and provide a really solid foundation for all of the events of the story. The tech itself is also really well thought out. I mean, just take a look at the spaceships, for example. They got these little mini thrusters that help them adjust in minute ways. There's even a structure to the way ships land on planet. They land vertically because their interiors are built like towers, with the thrust essentially coming out the bottom floor, which is what creates the artificial gravity for the people on the ship when they're in space. Think about it like when you're in an elevator and it moves in a particular direction, you feel this artificial heaviness or lightness in your body. They've really thought out what it's actually like for humans to be on these ships when they're traveling, and all these technological details are both internally consistent and fairly reasonable as far as predictions for how we would actually do them go. It's just really intelligently written science fiction. Now, other than the setting, the main driving force of the plot is this mysterious alien technology called the protomolecule that has been discovered and is creating immense changes within our society. A lot of the most interesting stories take place at times of massive change, and this specific change is driven by something that neither the audience nor the characters really understand. It's alien technology that is potentially who knows how old, and anything is possible. It's just this giant red button that is being dangled in front of human society, and it asks the question, well, how are you going to push it? When you combine this with the really well fleshed out human society that it's intersecting with, you have a really compelling overall plot. Now, obviously all this is great, but it means nothing unless you have a great cast of characters to follow through this world. And The Expanse does have that cast. Over the course of the 8 books and or 5 seasons, The Expanse develops a really big and really diverse cast. I mean this in multiple ways. It's racially diverse from our own perspective, but it's also very diverse from its own perspective because it has all of these different societies from all of these different parts of the solar system. There are interesting characters from every caste and creed that all have their own perspectives and priorities, and they all clash and intersect in various different ways. They meet, they split apart, they meet somehow in another part of the story, they split apart again. The world is just so massive and it feels lived in because of the cultures and the, width of this cast. Breadth? Is it width or breadth? Whichever one is more applicable. People say it's like Game of Thrones in space, which is a little bit lazy because fucking everything gets compared to Game of Thrones now. But with The Expanse, as far as the size of the cast goes and the way that it juggles its cast, I can definitely see the comparison with Game of Thrones. Some of the best characters are, for example, Amos Burton, a sociopathic mechanic who is incredibly charismatic and very easy to root for despite his condition. There's Avasarala, a career politician who is also a Desi grandma. They got a Desi grandma out here cussing at people and letting everyone know she's smarter than them all the time. It's fucking great, dude.
Holden, do not put your dick in it. It's fucked enough already.
Kudos for coming up with this character to Ty and Dan. But the show is not carried by any individual character. It's really a show that relies on and thrives on the strength of its overall cast as an ensemble, where the whole is much bigger than the sum of its parts. But aside from all the cool sci-fi technology stuff, the deep cultures and worlds, the crazy conceptual elements that come into play through the protomolecule, aside from all that, it also has a pretty strong sense of redemption. You'll find this theme peppered throughout the story in kind of subtle ways sometimes and also very not subtle ways at times, but it's very consistent and kind of heartwarming and uplifting. The Expanse is not afraid to delve into darker topics and subject matter. The worst humanity has to offer is on full display in this series throughout, from start to finish. But there's always this idea of redemption, the light at the end of the tunnel. The characters ask whether redemption is possible, what it looks like, and what it means to be truly irredeemable. And I really appreciate that, you know, it's a little bit corny maybe, but I find that it feels really honest. And it works as a balance to all the crazier elements at play in this series.
I have killed, but I'm not a killer, because a killer is a monster, and monsters aren't afraid.
Now, I've been gassing this series up like crazy so far, but with everything said, it's not perfect. There are some flaws, like if you're watching the show, I think that some of the acting in the earlier seasons can be a little bit hit or miss. Stephen Strait, who plays the main character, James Holden, can be kind of flat, especially in the earlier seasons. I find that he really came into his own towards the latter half of the series, especially in season 4. I was really impressed with him. But earlier on, you got to give it some time. In general, you got to give the show some time. That would probably be the other con. It's kind of a slow burn. You really have to give it some time to introduce you to the world and the various factions at play. It's not a show that will immediately reward you, but part of the reason for that is because this world is so well developed and so meticulously developed that it would be overwhelming to just throw you in the deep end. So you just have to give it some time. But I promise if you do give it some time, you'll find a series that has everything that sci-fi has to offer, really. And I mentioned diversity earlier, but I just want to mention again, like, it's pretty cool to see a series where you got proper brown mans just walking around being main characters, and they're not even like being stereotyped. It's super cool. I mean, they are being stereotyped, but it's like a future where these stereotypes have nothing to do with like our stereotypes in the modern day.
Donkey balls.
I just find that super cool. It's a little unfortunate though, if you've been following the drama surrounding my guy Alex Kamal. Honestly, why is it so hard for these horny ass dudes to keep their comments in their hands to themselves? Just fucking go home, rub one out, and then call it a night like a normal person. Jeez. Anyways, check out the series, books or show, whatever you check out. Let me know how you feel. I am super stoked for season 6. And even more stoked for the last book, which comes out this fall. Leviathan Falls, baby. I'm ready. I'm so ready. I just hope the adaptation actually reaches it, which is not a given at this point. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Peace out.